Welcome to Master of Science with host Professor James McCanney. The good professor's career spans 50 years as a university teacher, scientist, and engineer. Each week, he will explore the rapidly changing world of science as many long-held theories are crumbling under the weight of new data. He will cover the fields of geology, archaeology, meteorology, oceanography, space science, astronomy, cosmology, biological evolution, virology, energy, mathematics, and more. So please welcome the host of Master of Science, James McCanney.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight I have a couple updates. One is on the 3I Atlas, very interesting. And then also I'm going to have a discussion on artificial intelligence. Oh my goodness, is this becoming a mess, a real mess? Okay, well, first of all, I spent a lot of time in the past shows since August talking about Comet 3I Atlas and all the insanity. It's the only thing you can say about it. The insanity revolving around this particular comet. You know, people saying it's a spaceship. It has thrusters, some kind of silver thrusters. You know, just people saying they've seen windows in the nucleus. Absolute insanity. But anyway, the real big update is that in 2 days from now, this being September 30th, in 2 days on October 2nd, this comet will whisk by Mars. And oddly enough, there's an absolute perfect alignment. And by the way, the comet did slow down just a hair. And that's because of the tail drag. I've explained that on the show. But not significant enough to change its orbit or the timing of its orbit or passage of Mars, and certainly not so it's going to crash in to Mars. It's coming pretty close to Mars, actually, very close. But it's not going to crash into Mars or something. But Mercury, so we have the Sun, Mercury, little spark plug Mercury, coming around the Sun to help discharge the solar capacitor. And this past week, the Sun has already started pumping out flares in the direction of this comet. So it's already having an effect on the Sun. And that's because it's moving so quickly. It's creating a larger discharge of the solar capacitor for its size than normally would happen if we were in a more elliptical orbit and a much slower velocity. Okay, so anyway, we're expecting here, and I'm not sure what NASA is going to do. We've got amateurs posting pictures. They've successfully been able to block amateurs in the past when electrical discharges happen. So we'll see what kind of data comes out of this whole milieu. But Thursday, in 2 days, October 2nd, 2025, we are expecting this comet, I am expecting this comet to have a major interaction with the planet Mars, possibly the two moons. They could go comet, Mars could go comet. We could see hurricanes forming on Mars. We could see electrical discharges between Mars and this object, plasma effects. And so anyway, it's hard to say, but this comet has a very good discharge of the solar capacitor. And also the question about green. I keep seeing these articles. They don't know what causes the green in comets. They say it's always due to C2. No, because there's not enough abundance of C2 to see what we're seeing. As simple as that. There's only one element that has enough volume, enough presence in the comet tail to actually be seen with a green line, and I've already talked about that, what that is. But it's also going to be distorted because of I've talked about this in previous shows and in my work. So that's why NASA's not releasing the data. Another nut group, the NASA people who have the good equipment, and private observatories are not releasing the data. And that goes for the James Webb Telescope, the Hubble. And but if they had me there, I could explain to them what's going on with the green color and why it looks the way it does and why the spectrum looks the way it does. But of course, they're the experts. Don't tell them, the dirty snowball experts. And by the way, just to remind you that in 2018, the head of NASA science said on record that comets are not dirty snowballs. Yet you see this every time you see an article coming out of the US or UK press. It's that little icy wonder that comets are little snowballs, lying to the public, directly lying. And why this charade continues, I don't know. But okay, that's the update on 3i Atlas. Wait a day or so, or it could start as early as tomorrow, where the comet starts moving in to connect electrically with the planet Mars. Okay, on to the next topic here, artificial intelligence. Now, this has, I think about the second or third show in this series. By the way, we're on show number 60 tonight. It's the September 30th, 2025 show is show number 60 in the TV series Master of Science with Professor B. James McCanny, thank you. And I think the second or third show in this series, I did a discussion of artificial intelligence. And I've said all along, I was on Coast to Coast AM talking about artificial intelligence, and the specific topic there was that AI was going to fail. And it is failing remarkably. One of the big reasons is because most AI is not AI. In the first place, it's just relational databases. They're calling everything AI today. But it's being written, it's being developed by people who are just hacks. Everybody's an AI expert now. Become overnight. You see these ads on the internet. Become an AI expert overnight and now join making millions of dollars. That's the problem. Not everybody's going to make $1 million off of AI. There's a few companies, and they're going to make money off of ad generation and things like that, like the various big platforms, the ChatGPT, and of course the new Musk release of their AI system. And then you have these littler ones that are coming out of basically government-funded radio shows. I'm not going to list them specifically, but I've seen some that are obviously, you might say, Intel government-supported to bring disinformation, and some of them pretend to be defenders of the truth. Oh, the truth, they're telling you all the truth. No, they're completely controlled. Here's the thing. When you see the level of money and the level of success of a talk show or a radio or a podcast, somebody is behind it. Somebody is behind it, because in this world where reality speaks to let me talk about myself. I had a radio show, the one from WWCR, for 25 years. And it's not $1 million business on its own. As soon as you get sponsors, and then you get the level above sponsors, which are the controllers, and they get their message, they get their handlers in on the on the hosts of these shows, and they control them. They control the content, and it sounds like, oh, they're out there going to fight. They're going to bring this message to the world. They're fighting for you. No, they are controlled. You wouldn't be there. You wouldn't have this. You simply wouldn't have this level of success, let's put it that way, without the support in a lot of ways. And now this, let me go through my list here, and I think this will be self-explanatory. So the simple issue is that AI is becoming far too complex, in the sense, not that the programming is very complex, Like I say, these are relational databases. Um, but what's becoming complex is all of these competing systems out there. I had an incident here. A guy just told me the other day that one of his podcast platforms was completely shut down. Well, it didn't shut down, it shut him down because he was not on the inside track. But what's happening is AI is taking over. And when it's programmed, it has an attitude. Let's just put it that way. It has preconceived attitudes, and it's out there developing. And just to give you an example, a friend of mine in the earlier days of ChatGPT put my name in, said, "What about this McCanny guy?" And it comes back with all of this false information, completely false. And so anyway, the guy writes back and he says, "Well, this is all false information. How do I change it? How do I get real information into your system?" And it comes back and it says you can't. There's no way. And so let's make something clear. This idea that computers go off and they learn and all of this stuff. No, it's really not true. Computers are still at the point where they're programmed. And so let me tell you what a lot of AI systems did, because it would require them to go out and research many, many different topics. So what they do is they go to some database that's already been building, like the most typical one is Wikipedia. And they just take Wikipedia and they load it into their AI engine, assuming that that's somehow correct information. They don't go out into medical journals. They don't go out into scientific journals. They don't go out into other locations and get authoritative reviews from scientists or doctors or whatever. They go to an engine that's already created, and that's what they pull in. And that's their basis. And Wikipedia, a long time ago, was taken over literally by the CIA. And here's somehow the process, how it works. When Wikipedia started, there were competing online engines. I'll call them engines because that's what they do. They work. And the idea of Wikipedia was that everybody would be able to give their information. It would be an open source encyclopedia, and then ultimately we would have all the world knowledge. And so as these systems competed against one another, they ended up, one of them emerged as the clear winner. And at that point, the CIA comes in, uses laundered, basically, money from their other illicit operations and buys up the operation and takes it over. And so that's where a lot of the misinformation comes from. It's planned misinformation. And it's things are shadow banned. There's other things that have totally distorted information, etc. And then this gets incorporated into an AI database. The issue that we're dealing with today is that when AI systems are created, they hit critical mass. They go viral, as it's the term, but it's more than viral. It's an exponential increase in the flow of information to you, the public. So the only level of content that a provider, that an influencer, so to speak, can get in front of the general public today is something like maybe 15 seconds on a short. Just people are flipping through them, and that's their attention span, and it's boom, boom, one after the other one, with information that is, you hit one subject, then another subject, then another subject, then another subject, then it returns to something similar to the first subject you were listening to. But basically, that's the most amount of content, and people's attention span, like, for example, when I studied physics in college, sometimes it would take an entire night of working on a physics problem or a mathematics problem to break it down and come up with the correct solution. And a lot of times, the solution was not just a simple number or something. It was a complete structure that had to be analyzed and understood, and then ramifications of that structure. Very complicated. And so you need hours and hours of attention span related to everything that you've already done. So physics is very complicated, and that's why, once again, you see these yo-yos running around the internet talking about comets or other things. They have no physics background, and they're trying to compete or relate to someone who's had 10, 15, 20 years of study of physics, of understanding physical situations. And a lot of those people that get through this very difficult training, a lot of them don't have a good physical understanding of what's going on. When I studied physics, I would take a problem and I'd work through it. Okay, then I'd go back and I'd go through it all again, and I would visualize what the equations were saying. I would visualize what the information was saying, and as a result, I had a very good understanding of physics from an intuitive point of view. I know people, I'll say, define a problem or ask a question. The first thing they do is write down an equation. Well, this is such and such an equation or something. And what I do is I visualize it because of my vast experience in visualizing equations and theoretical concepts, etc. But today, people's brains with 15-second attention span, there's no way they're going to sit down and become rational people. They're controlled, and it's like a drug. Flipping through AI-generated YouTube or on the big radio podcast programs, those are all controlled information. And then it's boiled down, and a lot of times people, so many people might listen to the podcast on a daily basis, but the majority of that information is boiled down to a couple 15-second shorts that people see. Oh, that's the Joe Rogan show, or that's the whatever show, the some kind of ranger or something. And that's what it boils down to. And a lot of these stations are. Let me tell you how to tell if they're highly controlled or not. How successful they are. Are they dealing with millions of dollars? Are they dealing with very large, say, product lines, or they have big contracts or something like that? Very simply put, there's somewhere in the background, there's a great deal of control going on. Okay, so now I'm going to go through kind of the evolution of how all of this came about. So starting out with a thing called SSL, Secure Socket Layer. Now, when you go to your web page, you go to your browser and you click on a web page, and it comes up, the URL is up in your browser window, and it says HTTPS. That S that's there indicates that that web page has gained a secure socket layer by paying for it. That's how they get it. It's not because they have to do something special or put something special in their web page. It's actually in the server at a level above the web page. So this was somewhat of a scam, a form of highway robbery, literally, for people with web pages, because if you didn't get SSL certification and were then allowed to put that S up there for search engines to see, if you just came up with HTTP, a message would flash up on the screen and say, don't go to this web page, it's dangerous. Well, it had nothing to do with the web page. SSL doesn't go out and verify that the web page is secure or without problems, without viruses. It doesn't check any of that. It has to do with when you log into that page, the very first time you log into that page, that supposedly you're doing this with a secure encryption. But the problem is they use uh, public key encryption, which has been thoroughly broken. But they still sell this, and it's still the norm. So it was one of the very initial forms of what I call intellectual highway robbery, where they literally forced you to pay on an annual basis, the server or ISP or the web page, whoever is somewhere along the line that you have to pay to get this SSL certification. And so, and it really doesn't do anything. It gives you the impression that the web page you're going to is somehow secure, but it's not. It has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the secure level or the web page or anything like that. Okay. Uh, there was social security, social media controlled by obscure servers with agendas. They waited to see who the winners were and organically then moved in to take over. Includes all the major platforms. So all of the major platforms where you go to, whether they're podcasts, whether they're the social media, whether it's YouTube, etc., all of these were eventually, when the clear winners were coming out, someone came in and took them over. And there's great profit in this, but not only profit, it's a matter of control. Okay, then the artificial banning, shadow banning, in other words, taking a show and making sure people don't see it, or taking a show that they want to promote and push it out there where the public will see. It'll be pushed out to the public, and depending on the message. So there's the creation of the message, the underlying message, the agenda, and then being pushed out there for general blanket coverage, or sometimes, especially like I started out talking about 3i Atlas, the comet, there's a point in which there are hundreds, if not thousands, of YouTube channels, web pages, news pages, which have picked up these stories, completely false, and promulgated them onto the internet. And of course they have handlers, and the way to tell them is look at the graphics. Look at if it's say a 10 or 20-minute video, look at the graphics, and they come out and it's amazing graphics. Somebody behind the scenes is doing that, probably related to NASA when it comes to astronomy, astrophysics, etc. So that's one of the issues. And the other one is look at the numbers. I saw a web page, it had 50,000 subscribers. And they posted a video, and within hours, it had 500,000 views. 10 times the number of subscribers had viewed it within a few hours. Well, that's impossible. And so someone is either creating those numbers or pushing it out to the point where that many people actually saw the video. And then the AI engines pick that up and say, oh, everybody wants to see this, so that it makes it more visible, puts it out visibility for a lot more people. So it's a way of artificially promoting something that really generically of its own would not be seen by hardly anybody. And craziness about this comet that, they say it's an alien spaceship, and there's another comet coming in, it's another alien spaceship, and they're going to crash and collide and have an alien war, and it's going to affect Earth, or crash into Mars, or all kinds of nonsense. But it gets pushed out there in large numbers, and the real story never gets seen. The advertisers and sponsors behind some of the biggest radio TV shows are controlling the data. They have narratives. And this is something that happened. I've seen this happen to many talk show hosts over the years. They start getting big. They start getting bigger and bigger and bigger. All of a sudden, the sponsors roll in. Oh boy, you're going to make you're going to make big money. You're going to have tens of thousands of dollars per month, maybe hundreds of thousands, $1 million contracts, etc. And all of a sudden, if you don't relinquish control of your content, then all of a sudden they come in and they go, oh, okay, we're going to shut your show down, and then a lot of times they'll find it a legal issue with the person and start taking them to court and all of these problems. And then somebody comes in one day and says, gee, if you just play ball with us, all of this stuff would go away. Your show's going to be much bigger. We're going to really promote it, and everything's going to be swell. And there are people I've seen turn that down, and then they become destroyed. Alex Merklinger, a friend of mine back in the early 2000s, he turned it down, and they destroyed him overnight, financially, emotionally, legally, and he was a very highly listened to talk show host. I was on his show many times. And then there's other people who bit the hook and took it, and now they're just millions and millions of dollars. They're the biggest thing since sliced bread, and they really have very poor content. They really have, in a lot of them, they're pushing bad scientific concepts, etc. So anyway, the advertisers, sponsors, and the building of the platform. Let me see what else here. Oh, not to go without mentioning, there's an organization that was as a front organization of the CIA. It is called InQtel, so it's IN-Q, the letter Q, capital Q, dash tel. And InQtel is a company basically laundering money from illicit operations from around the world to buy high-tech companies. And initially it was in the form of what we call remote sensing, so camera equipment, drones, any type of remote sensing equipment, cameras, telescopes, whatever. And these companies would be purchased, and this technology would be incorporated into basically the matrix, what you might call today the matrix, a loose term. And then they expanded into other avenues of high technology to the point where they control AI and all kinds of other things today. So have to mention them because they're a major player in what goes on behind the scenes to control information that you see. Okay, and now that leads us up to AI. So one other thing I wanted to mention here is SEO and SMO. This was another phase. People had advertisements. So let me just go through this. How would you, if you had a product, let's say, whether it's informational, whether you had a product that was physical, the first stage of advertising on the internet was advertising. You would actually put advertisements out there. People would pay for them, and that of course is still going on when you go to, say, YouTube channels, etc. One of the major forms of promoting products is through advertisement, click-through advertisement. Okay, and then how do you get your web page up listed, though, on a Google ranking or whatever? And that was, for a long time, it's called SEO, and SMO. Those are synonymous pseudonyms for methods of doing all the right things, let's put it that way, in the programming sense, to get your page recognized, where you start getting more and more clicks. You use keywords, etc. And there's a whole logistics behind that. But the problem is, all of a sudden, everybody's doing SEO, SMO. So how does it work for a given person? Well, that's an interesting question. And so, in fact, it doesn't. So along comes AI. Now, that's the newest thing, is to be able to create content on short notice with a much flashier, let's put it that way, a much flashier presentation. And so now, once again, you have, here's another thing that's going on. Most AI is generated by very poor developers. Not poor in the financial sense, but poor in the training sense. So they really don't know what they're doing, and in most cases it's not AI, it's relational databases. But they can take, you can take a picture right now, an old picture. You can clean it up with AI, make it look like brand spanking new, and then you can make a movie out of it. And so the advertisements I've seen, it's some guy has an old picture of grandma and she's standing next to a horse or something. So anyway, they take the picture and they clean it up and then they put it in AI, and then all of a sudden grandma's riding down the road on her horse. All AI generated from this old photo. And so anyway, the amount of content being developed today is just beyond belief. It's staggering. So then again, if you're an advertiser, if you're producing a product, you have to ask the question, how can you develop something in AI that's going to be seen with this avalanche of material that's out there, with everybody trying to get their product in front of the consumer so that they get their 15 seconds of time, so maybe somebody will click on their webpage and buy their product. And that's where all of a sudden Amazon comes in. Amazon is of course, worldwide, huge organization, and most sales today go through Amazon. Every year, I forget, a few years ago, 20% of all sales went through Amazon. That's increasing. And in the process, it's consuming a lot of businesses. A lot of small businesses are going under. Absolutely unbelievable. And you see, like, I saw one the other day, a sporting goods store going under that's been in business for maybe since I was a kid, or longer. And all of a sudden they're going under. They can't compete because everybody's selling. They're trying to compete on Amazon. And to do that, you have to sell for pennies on the dollar. There's no profit margin, and so you cannot run a physical store, brick and mortar store, and sell on Amazon, because first of all, it's not necessary, because the people do not go to your store. They go to Amazon, and your product, if you're really complying with Amazon, the best possible way to sell on Amazon, you're housing your goods at the Amazon warehouse, so it can be shipped out right away. People on Amazon Prime can have it shipped along with other products. And so there's no need anymore for the brick and mortar store. You can just sit in your car or in your house, use your cell phone. That's another thing. 70%, 80% of orders are from cell phones, and that's turning over to voice, where 60 to 70 to 80% of sales now are done not by touching your cell phone or computer, but through voice. And so these things are changing so fast that the end of businesses, small business, and the centralization of business on these platforms. There's other platforms out there, but Amazon, of course, is the biggest one, but a clear monopoly. And putting, the businesses just can't compete anymore. And once they go by the wayside, they're done. They're not coming back. The supply chain, etc. And then the other thing that happens is you'll find somebody becomes successful on Amazon selling a product, and so there are people out there fishing. Oh, well, I can get that same product made in China for 2 cents a piece, and then they start selling it and underselling it to the manufacturer that's, say, in the United States or whatever, and it just like so actually posting on Amazon is a problem for businesses, because somebody comes in, and it happens in the clothing business on Amazon all the time. Somebody comes in with a unique product, a very well-made, handmade product, whatever. Within a few months or even weeks sometimes, you have somebody coming in selling the same product, a look-alike. It looks the same but a lot cheaper, and drives that person out of business. So for posting on Amazon, it actually drives them out of business. Anyway, the world that we're living in today, with the generation of AI, is information overload. There's stories on recently where books have been written in a half hour. An entire book written by AI, generated, posted on YouTube. I'm sorry, not on YouTube, but on Amazon for sale. At any rate, wanted to give a little bit of a rundown on where things are going. If you more information on this particular topic, I'll continue it on my Patreon channel. It's patreon.com/JMCCSCI, the same as the webpage here, same designation. So my Patreon channel page, JMCCSCI, and go there, and that's another way you can support me, is becoming a Patreon member. I think $5 minimum. And then you get a lot more information, a lot more continuation on these topics and more. So thank you, and we'll talk to you next week.
This has been Master of Science with host James McCanny. Join us each week as James will delve into historical figures such as Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, and the great mathematicians as we explore the history of man, Earth, and our universe as you've never seen it before. Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern.